right, what is up, play-by programmers? Welcome back to Behavior Basics. This is going to be episode number 6. Today we're going to be stepping out of behaviors just a little bit to move to something sort of adjacent. We're going to be looking at blueprints. Now, blueprints can be used completely separate from the behavior system, but they also interact with the behavior system really, really well. So let's just take a little look here. We're going to open this bad boy up. And we're going to create ourselves a new blueprint. So we'll just create a new blueprint. And then we'll pick. And this is your blueprint UI here. And when you create a new blueprint, the first thing you're going to have to do is choose from a list of the buildings and bots that you currently have unlocked which bot or building you want to make a blueprint for. So we're going to go ahead and grab this little 2x1 right here. And then it's going to open up this preview window. And this right here just tells you sort of what comes bolted on to that building or bot before you get it started. So we can see down here, these are the item storages, right? This is a preview of what the bot looks like. And you've got your 4 little item storages here. You have the same registers that you normally have when you're working within a parameter. So you can set these. All of these things are settable. So like I can lock this to a specific item. I can say this can only hold metal ore. I can unlock that and get rid of that. I can do basically anything that I could normally do with an inventory slot on a building. I can do that beforehand so that the building knows that information when it gets built. So blueprints are actually really, really valuable, even if you're not doing automation, if you're not using behaviors. Going through and finding some things that you might need to replicate would be a really good thing to do here, right? If you're always going to have storage facilities that have certain resources, if you're always going to have all kinds of different stuff. So making sure that you go in and make yourself some blueprints for some buildings or groups of buildings, because you can use multiple buildings in a blueprint. And we'll look at that a little later, but doing that is a really good idea. Over here, you've got your slots. So the 2x1 has 1 medium slot and 3 internal slots. Now, this is really important because if you choose as part of this blueprint for this to also get some sort of component in its slots, these components actually become part of this recipe, which is really cool. And I'm going to actually teach you how to understand this recipe in the future with your behaviors, just a little later in the video here. So we can go ahead and get rid of that. So you've got all of your different components here. You've got the name of your building right here. You've got options, so you can set an integrated behavior as part of your blueprint. So whenever this structure is built, it specifically gets that integrated behavior. You can turn its power on or off. You can set it or take it out of the logistics network. You can set it up to be requesting a certain item when it's built. You can do all kinds of cool stuff to make these blueprints really, really functional. And the last thing that we want to look at here is we want to look at the blueprint parameters. So this is actually probably one of the most important things, and something that a lot of people, even some of the people who've been playing for a while, didn't really seem to understand. These blueprint parameters are just like your parameters for your behaviors. So let's go in here and let's make some parameters. This is a parameter. Awesome. And then we'll add another one and we'll say this is a second parameter. Yep. Alrighty. And so the reason that these are really important is once you make these parameters, now you can't change their indexes. It's always going to be key 1, key 2, key 3, key 4, right? It's always going to be down there. You can set these to default values. I normally don't, but the important thing here is you can set these parameters to any register, right? So your inventory, I can lock items to parameter 1. I can set the visual to parameter 2. I can open this up and I can pick myself a component, and then I can set those component registers to different parameters. And the reason that that's so important is once we know that we can set those parameters like that, we can input information from our behaviors to change these buildings. So say I was making a storage building, right? I can go in here and I can change this type to a storage block. So say maybe I was looking to do a storage building and I wanted all of these to be locked to a certain resource. Then I could go in here and for parameter 1, right, I could pull in that resource that I wanted to lock these to. And then I just lock this right here. And so now this works no matter what resource I want to store in it, because when I make it, I can actually select that parameter and then boom, it just locks all those to that resource. So you can really, really quickly and very easily make specific things in that way. And then you could also set up the visual register to be the same. So this works programmatically. This works within your behaviors, but it also works outside of your behaviors. So let's rename this blueprint. Let's name it some storage. And then we're going to go into my build here. And instead of making a regular storage block, I'm going to go down here to my tier 1s and I'm going to go to this some storage building that I just made. And it's going to ask me to input values for the parameters. So even though I'm not applying a value to this parameter programmatically, it's still going to ask me, hey, what are you trying to do? And I can go in here and I can make that crystal. And then when I hit OK, if I go build that structure, it's going to do exactly what I wanted, which was to lock all of these to that parameter that I just set. Now, the way this works with behaviors, if we open this up, I'm in my test behavior right now. So if we open that up, we can take a look. We can place a construction. And when we place a construction, we select the construction we want to do. And now you see our parameters. This is a parameter. This is a second parameter, are right here on my inputs. So I can pick a coordinate to place this construction. And then I can fill those with variables. I can fill them with faction registers. I can choose things inside of here. I can do whatever I want programmatically to set up these parameters. So I can have a whole decision-making program going on, deciding what type of resource I need more storage for, and then just automatically, bammo, input something as a parameter, and we can get that built. Being able to pass parameters into these blueprints is really going to save you a lot of time on making blueprints. Because not using these parameters, I can very easily just make, 8 iterations of this storage. And I can just go in here and I can lock these to a specific resource, right? And then every time I just go in and I build specifically the ore one, or specifically the crystal one, or whatever it is that I'm storing. But if I do it with this parameter, then that means that this one blueprint can be storage for anything. So if you look at, some of your more advanced buildings, you're talking about maybe a structure that's going to be fabricating some things, right? So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to set this up where this maybe is going to be what I'm fabricating. So we're going to go ahead and put number 2 is what I'm fabricating. And then number 1 is going to be the resources or resource that I need in order to fabricate that. So I'm going to be able to lock this to key 1 so that I'm only pulling in that specific resource I need. So maybe I'm making metal bars, and these I'm locking to metal ore. Or maybe I'm making circuit boards, and so I'm locking to plates. And then if I had another parameter, I could lock the other one to crystals. Just whatever it is that you need to be able to lock these to, and all of your decision logic can go ahead and be in your behavior to get that all set up. So blueprints are super, super cool, and they give you a lot of good flexibility. The last thing you can do is you can also pull, let's see if I've got something that's got some parameters already. Here we go. So this one has parameters already. This is never something I would set up, but you have an integrated behavior controller, and your integrated behavior controller is already, or is a component. So it follows the same rules. So if you apply a behavior, right, to the integrated behavior controller, or if you have internal behavior controllers, you can also, you can have 3 more behaviors on this structure if you want. But you set up your behavior controller, you set up which behavior is loaded, and if it has parameters that are inputs, like this one does, then you can pass those parameters on to those behavior controllers as well. So if I want this behavior here to be able to know what resource I'm needing to be able to make the thing that I'm making, then I can just pass that parameter all the way through. So this will come, right? I have a behavior that's calling a build on this structure, and it's passing me a parameter. And then I'm using that parameter inside of this building, and then I'm passing that parameter through all the way to the behavior that this building is ultimately going to run. So you can pull in a lot of information and get things set up from, steps ago. So your decision-making logic can just kind of pass those decisions down to then the operating structure of your building. So parameters inside of your blueprints are incredibly useful. So now let's take a look at what it takes to make multi-building blueprints. So we can go down here and we can select these. You need to select 2 buildings that are next to each other, and then you hit C and you copy your 2 structures. Then you go into your library, and you're not going to be able to create a new blueprint. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to paste item from that copy that you had. And now you have a new multi-blueprint. So I have my 2 1x1s right here, and you see that they're totally separate here. But I can start doing all kinds of cool shit with these different buildings. For example, if I'm over here, one of the things that you might know about is storage, right? Your store parameter can be set to a different structure. So I can go ahead and copy this and make this the store for this building right here. So if it had a transmitter or something, it would constantly be passing that information over there. But I can set up nice long chains of buildings this way that are custom built for specific activities. So one of the things that a lot of the people on the Discord do, and I don't have the ability to do this right now because I'm really early game on the playthrough I'm doing right now, but beacons have internal transporters. And if you put a beacon in the middle of a structure and then you put one by one, or you put things within one space in a square around that beacon, then that beacon can use its internal transmitter or transporter. Sorry, not transmitter, transporter can use its internal transporter to move all of your resources around all of those buildings. So you get 8 buildings in a square around a single beacon. And then that beacon can handle all of the resource management among those 8 buildings. And so you can create nice little factories, right? You get a storage on one side that's your input for all the resources you need. And then you get a storage on the other side that's your output for all of the production that you make. And then you get, you get one of these making metal bars, and then maybe you get the other one making plates. And then maybe you get a 2x1 that's added on there, and you build up all these different things, all of these different buildings around the outside of this, and then that transmitter can move everything. And all you have to do is say, hey, everything that's in this one goes here. Everything that's in this one goes over here. This one is locked to certain things. This one's locked to certain other things. You can put your integrated controllers. You can put all kinds of parameters and stuff in there. It looks like, so the parameters are for the entire blueprint. So this is actually really interesting. Because the parameters are for the entire blueprint, even this multi-blueprint, you're only passing in one set of parameters, right? You're not making different parameters for each building in here. So you can share all of that information across all of these by choosing where that information is going to get propagated to. And that can be done through all of your integrated controllers. That can be done through all of your other components and all of their registers, all of your inventories, your visual registers, all of those things can have all of that stuff in there. So it's very, very important. Probably one of the most important things you're going to do in your automation is to create blueprints for your buildings, for your groups of buildings, and for your units, because you want to have as much of the work front loaded as you can possibly get, right? You don't want your code to have to work out what components a unit is going to need in order to be a gatherer, right? You just want to come in here and you want to change the type of your blueprint. Let's go over here. You just want to change the type of your blueprint to the bot that you're going to use. And then you want to say, okay, this is going to be a combat bot. It's going to get a turret, right? It's going to get a radar so it can find stuff. It's going to get all these things. And then we're going to decide, okay, it's always going to be targeting certain types of enemies, right? So maybe I pass in a parameter for that. Or, I pass in a radar thing. So it's always looking for enemies on the radar or whatever. But you can get all that stuff front loaded, and then you don't have to create some sort of crazy decision tree to decide what components your buildings and units are going to need. You can make all those decisions beforehand and then say, okay, under these certain situations, this is what you're going to build. And it makes life significantly easier for you. But that's pretty much all there is to blueprints. Now, right now, it seems like multi-building blueprints are broken inside of our behaviors. So we can't actually get multi-blueprints to build inside of our behaviors. They seem like they're going to work, but then they don't. I don't know exactly what the deal is with that. So you are only able to build single buildings at a time right now, which is a little unfortunate and means there's a lot more behavior logic that goes into making some of the interconnections and stuff that you would normally be able to set up. Because you can set these storages up or these store functions programmatically, right? You can set up the beacon in the middle doing all the transmission or all the transportation of all the resources. You can do that in a program, right? You could write a behavior that would build each of these buildings independently and make all the connections that they need to make. It's going to be much more difficult. And honestly, I would wait for a little while and see if maybe they get that fixed in a patch or something like that. So it is still possible to use lots of buildings, but you're not going to be able to do the multi-building blueprints programmatically right now. Now, if you're doing a hybrid automation and manual, then you can do just like we do with the one building. And we can just go in here, we can go to build, and we can go to build multi, and we can pick what the parameter is. Boom. Okay, cool. We've got a parameter. And then we can just drop those down. You see there's two of them that are highlighted in there. And we can make all those buildings all day long, and that's super easy. But unfortunately, programmatically, you can't really do that. But yeah, I hope that was a pretty short one, but I hope everybody gets some value out of the blueprints and has a little fun setting those up. They're a lot of fun. They can have a lot of cool stuff set up in the beginning so that you can just start plunking things down and really save yourself a lot of decision-making time. If you plan on doing any PvP, or if you plan on playing like the swarm mode and you're going to have lots of bugs and stuff attacking you, being able to front load some of that decision making is probably going to save you quite a bit of time. Oh, the last thing we wanted to look at is we wanted to look at how to figure out the recipe of these different buildings. So this is actually part of that right here. When you loop inventory slots, you can set a building that is currently under construction as the unit. And it will read the requests as its inventory. So if we take a look, we're going to pause this real quick so that it doesn't start. Well, actually, I think everything's off the logistics network. So we can probably just keep that running. But we're going to go in here and we're going to build this right here. It doesn't really matter what our parameters are. We're going to go ahead and save that. And we'll put that down right there. But the big deal here is that what this wants is different from a regular... Oh, actually, these runners are designed to go get stuff and fill this order and build this building. Yeah, I just went and got those 10 circuit boards. I actually don't know why I got those circuit boards. I don't need circuit boards for this. Weird. Anyway, so you can see that the recipe to build this is different than the recipe to just build a regular 1x1. And the reason that is that this building is a blueprint and it has a fabricator already attached to it. But if you just loop the recipe for a 1x1, then you're not going to be able to get that fabricator as part of the recipe. And so you'll never be able to serve this without using your logistics network. And that's not very good. But if we go in here and we can loop units within range. And the filter we use is an information filter. We use constructions. So anything that's under construction right now will get picked up. And we do that within our visual range, which is 20. And so that means that we're going to get this under construction unit. And we'll go ahead and put in here, under construction. And I've actually done this already, but I'm going to do it with you all. And so then we loop the inventory. Now you can loop inventory of remote units. So you just put the under construction unit as the target unit, as the input here. And then you're going to see that this reserved space right here tells you how much of a resource you need. So we're going to go in here, we're going to put resources needed, and we're going to say okay. And then we're going to mem insert, memory insert. We're going to put that right here as part of this loop extension. And we're going to take the value that we need, and then we're just going to give it an index. It'll be this right here. And so all this is going to do is it's going to find our construction. It's going to pass that through. It's going to loop its inventory, and it's going to find its reserved stuff. And so we're going to talk about this a little bit. I want to run this real quick. So we're going to hit it. You're going to see it looped a couple of times. We're going to stop it. It's actually going to have, I'm a dum-dum. Keep the array. Okay. So now we can save that. We can play it. It goes through everything. Okay. We look in our array and we see we need 1 fabricator, 10 metal bars, and 5 crystals. Now the reason this is important is when it's saying it's reserved, if you fill one of these, right? If I bring in 10 metal bars, for example, this will start showing up as a 0. So let's see if we can do that real quick. Let's go ahead and send 10 metal bars there. Oh, we can't. That's right. I took everything off the logistics network. Okay. So what we want to do is we'll go ahead and drop those 10 circuit boards off. We'll pick those up right there. Give me these. Oh, I've already got this cancel order. There we go. Pick that up right there. And then we'll actually bring this over and drop that off. And so now we can go back into our scout here. We can open this up. We'll go over here. We'll clear our memory. And then we'll run this again. And then when we open this up, you see we now need 0 metal bars because it's already been supplied. So this is how you're going to identify what resources and how many of those resources you're going to need in order to make whatever your building is. And then you can just use these outputs and you can put them in an array. You can assign them to certain units to make the delivery. You can do whatever it is you need to do. But because you're using a blueprint and because the recipe is different from the standard recipe, you need to use that cycle through. You need to figure out specifically what this construction is, and you need to specifically get the stuff for just this construction. And that's completely agnostic, right? It doesn't matter. It's just getting any available construction, right? Anything that wants to be constructed right now. So if I had 10 buildings that were all being constructed, then it would eventually loop through all 10 of those buildings, and it would do all of this for all of these. And if I was setting them up to different memories, then I could have a whole array of tons of buildings that were under construction and all of the resources that they needed in order to be able to do that. So if I didn't have enough fabricators, right, I could use this information, this data I'm pulling, to make myself some more fabricators, to go mine myself some more crystal, whatever it is. So this right here, this loop inventory slots, on a building that is under construction outputs the resources you still need in order to make that construction. So super duper important. But yeah, with the inclusion of parameters, with the inclusion of the ability to cycle through that and see exactly what it is we need in order to make these blueprints and get these constructions done, I think you'll be able to find some really valuable stuff in there to get your automation going, to get your buildings, building automatically, expanding automatically, making your base bigger, searching for new resources, all of that stuff. So we're kind of building up the core foundational building blocks here of what it takes to get that long-term automation going. So I hope that everybody got some value out of the video today. If you did, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget to come hang out in the official Desynced Discord. We're down there in the behavior channel, chit-chatting pretty much all the time. There's quite a few folks in there, always talking about behaviors and helping people out. So yeah, I hope everybody has a great day, and I will see you all on the next one.